Complexity looks smart. Simplicity wins. There's a rule that has survived every empire, every market cycle, every technological revolution, and every generation of human beings who ever tried to build a meaningful life. A rule so simple that most people step over it without noticing. A rule so old that modern society dismisses it as outdated. A rule so powerful that the wealthiest, wisest, and calmest people alive still follow it today. The rule is this: simple beats complicated. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but almost always. And yet, strangely, humans have an instinct to drift toward complexity, to chase noise, chaos, confusion, and layers of difficulty that end up burying the very things they're trying to grow. We build financial systems we can't explain. We chase trends we barely understand. We design routines we can't maintain. We create plans that require superhuman discipline, and then we blame ourselves when they collapse. We complicate everything: our decisions, our relationships, our habits, our identity, even our dreams. And eventually, many of us end up exhausted, not because life is inherently hard, but because we've made it harder than it needs to be. But when you study the people who build long-lasting wealth that survives storms, you notice something surprising. Their lives are not complicated at all. Their methods are simple. Their reasoning is simple. Their habits are simple. They aren't chasing 10 different paths. They aren't drowning in strategies. They aren't addicted to noise. Their clarity comes from removing complexity, not adding it. The Compass Keeper once said, "Clarity is earned. Complexity is chosen. And the more you observe the world, the more that line reveals its truth." If you look back across human history, you'll see that people tend to complicate things when they don't fully understand them. They add complex words, complex theories, complex systems, not because complexity works better, but because complexity makes people feel smarter. But simplicity is what makes people succeed. Complexity is how people perform. Simplicity is how people win. Every time a market becomes noisy, experts appear, talking louder, predicting more aggressively, layering explanations on top of explanations. But underneath the noise, the truth is usually very simple. The ancient Stoics understood this. So did Warren Buffett. So did Naval Ravikant. So did every thinker who lived long enough to see patterns instead of hype. Human nature wants complexity. Wisdom wants simplicity. And the people who choose simplicity almost always end up with an advantage, because they save energy, avoid emotional mistakes, and make clearer decisions. A simple mind sees truth faster. A complicated mind sees illusions longer. The difference between success and failure is often nothing more than the difference between the two. Modern society worships complexity because complexity looks impressive. A complicated idea sounds smart. A complicated lifestyle looks successful. A complicated strategy feels advanced. But here's the part people forget. Complexity is fragile. The more moving parts something has, the more points of failure it creates, and that applies everywhere. Complicated investment plans fail because people can't stick to them. Complicated habits fail because they're impossible to maintain on bad days. Complicated dreams fail because people get lost halfway. Complicated decisions fail because emotions tear them apart. Complexity destroys consistency, and without consistency, nothing in life compounds. The loudest voices in the world sell complexity because it sells better. It makes them sound important. But the wisest voices whisper simplicity because simplicity works better. Buffett didn't choose the most complicated businesses. He chose the simplest ones, the ones even a fool could run, because one day a fool would. Across time, simplicity has consistently outperformed complexity, not because simple things are easier, but because simple things are clearer. Roman generals had a rule: simple plans survive the fog of war. Great investors have a rule: simple strategies survive the noise of markets. Monks had a rule: a cluttered mind cannot see truth. Children understand simple rules. The elderly understand simple truths. It's only the people in between who get lost trying to prove something. When you strip away the noise of life, you notice something profound. Success is rarely about doing more. It's almost always about doing less, but doing it better. Simplicity creates wealth for 4 reasons, and each one builds on the next. First, simplicity reduces mistakes. Most financial mistakes are emotional mistakes: panic selling, chasing hype, reacting too fast, overcomplicating, trying to time the perfect moment. The more complicated your system is, the more emotional landmines it contains. But simple rules: spend less than you earn, invest consistently, think in decades, ignore noise, are nearly impossible to destroy. Second, simplicity increases clarity, and clarity turns into confidence. Confidence turns into action. Action turns into results. When your system is simple, you always know what to do next. When your system is complicated, every decision feels like a crisis. Third, simplicity protects your energy. Energy, not time, is the true currency behind wealth, behind progress, behind any life that compounds. Complexity consumes energy. Simplicity protects it. The wealthy don't simplify because they're lazy. They simplify because focus is a superpower. Fourth, simplicity is what makes compounding possible. Compounding only works when you stay invested, stay consistent, stay calm, and stay patient. Complexity breaks all 4. If you want compounding to work its quiet magic, you must build a life simple enough to allow it. Imagine walking through a dark forest at night. Most people build mazes, twisting routes, shortcuts, detours, distractions. The maze looks exciting at first, until you realize it keeps you lost. The compass keeper walks a straight line, quiet, steady, patient. The straight line looks boring, until you realize it brings you home. That's why simplicity wins. It removes what doesn't matter, so what does matter finally has room to grow. When life is simple, your direction becomes clearer. Your habits become stronger. Your mind becomes lighter. Most people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because their systems collapse under the weight of their own complexity. Simplicity is not a lack of depth. Simplicity is depth in its purest form. But complexity has become fashionable. In today's world, people confuse complexity with progress. They think if something is overwhelming, it must be meaningful. If something is chaotic, it must be advanced. If something is complicated, it must be important. But complication is often nothing more than disguised insecurity. People complicate things because they fear failure, because they want to look intelligent, because they want validation, because they want shortcuts, because they want to feel in control. But the more they complicate, the more confused they become. And confusion is the enemy of progress. The people who win, who truly win, are the ones who strip life down to the essentials. They follow the ancient rule. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it. Einstein said this. Munger lived by it. Morgan Housel writes about it. Every wise person repeated it. Simplicity isn't primitive. Simplicity is mastery. Living simply doesn't mean living easily. It means living intentionally. It means building systems that are clear, sustainable, repeatable, emotionally stable. It means doing fewer things, but doing them consistently. It means choosing long-term clarity over short-term excitement. It means ignoring anything that doesn't move the needle. It means building habits that work even on your worst days. It means removing friction instead of chasing motivation. It means letting compounding do what only compounding can do. No tricks, no hacks, no complexity, just simple systems that quietly multiply over time. Here's the truth most people don't realize until they're older. Complexity feels impressive in the moment, but simplicity wins in the long run. Simple things survive. Simple things compound. Simple things stay intact when life gets hard. Complicated things shatter at the first sign of stress. For centuries, ancient wisdom has favored the simple. The straight line over the maze, the quiet rule over the loud strategy, the timeless over the trendy. And in a world obsessed with complexity, simplicity has become a competitive advantage. The real question is not, how can I make my life more impressive? The real question is, How can I make my life more clear? Because clarity creates direction, direction creates action, action creates momentum, momentum creates wealth, and all of it begins with one thing, the timeless rule that simple beats complicated. Not because simplicity is easy, but because simplicity is strong. Not because simplicity is exciting, but because simplicity is true. In a noisy world, simplicity becomes a form of wisdom. In a chaotic world, simplicity becomes a form of power. And on the path of the compass keeper, simplicity becomes a way of life. Simple beats complicated, and it always has.